Hello, everybody. We have Terry Wager here, and the topic today is how to maintain a performance mindset in any situation. Terry, the floor is yours.
Well, before I get started, I would like to thank Maro. Boomerang Give to Get is an amazing program. I got involved in the beginnings of it when we were actually on a trip to a mastermind where both of us were participants of the mastermind. And he's like, I got this cool idea. And, okay, so just a little bit of a story. Every time I ever meet Maro or anything, the first thing he says to me is, I got this cool idea. He's got these cool ideas. And the reality is all of them are cool. And some of them are actually able to be done. And so he started telling me about this cool idea. And the first one I heard was about shoelaces. So I'm like, oh my God, here we go, shoelaces. He still thinks it's a cool idea, by the way.
I do, because it really is.
And it is. It is just for somebody else, not me. But the funny thing is Maro always comes up with these cool ideas. And as he was explaining this particular one, it started getting me more and more excited about this idea of helping other people make more money and start to actually be able to afford the endeavor that we think, I know Maro thinks this as well as I do, life is all about, which is to start to become more aware of yourself and more aware of how you grow and really developing yourself as a human being and being able to give back to the world the way that we all should. And I use should as a quote term because you really shouldn't do anything you don't want to, but it's really about how you want to be. And what I found is the more that I give and the more that I show up helping people, the more prosperous I become. Now, there's going to be boundaries around that, and we can talk about those as we go. And as I present in different hours that I present at Give to Get, I'll be talking more about that, and you'll hear more about that. And then the other piece is really not just about giving, but how to actually keep yourself in a high performance emotional state, mindset, have your business in a place that continues to grow. And that's what we're talking about here today. We're talking about high performance mindset. But what does it matter to have a high performance mindset if you're not growing a business or you're not trying to have better relationships or you're not really into growing in some way? High performance doesn't matter if you're just a flower outside blooming. We really want to look at the idea of when high performance comes into play, it's because we want somewhere to go. We want to have a goal. We want to have a vision. We want to have a direction. And as Maro was talking to me, we were at Disney Springs in Florida, Orlando, and he was telling me about this idea of when people buy in and start to really get other people involved, we all start to make money. And I'm like, hey, that's pretty much like every business out there. How is this different? And he's like, no, because what we're doing is we're creating this crowdfunding idea. And so you've heard of crowdfunding. I'm like, yeah, I've heard of crowdfunding, Kickstarter and all of these different things. And he's like, what if people started actually contributing to this idea so that they could take something out of it later and not just contribute to somebody else's idea because somebody had cancer or somebody had a book that they wanted to publish and didn't have the money. But what if it actually helped everyone at the same time? And so no matter if they had cancer, no matter if they had some kind of procedure they needed done, or they want to have a wedding, or they wanted to have buying properties, or they wanted to do something, this is a way that everybody contributes a little bit of money. Everybody makes money off of it, and everybody is able to borrow from it. And everybody's able to have the life that they chose. And I'm like, that is an amazing idea. It sounds a little psychotic, but tell me more. And so he started telling me more and more about it. And I got more and more excited because this is not just a crazy idea. It actually makes sense. Because if you think about the law of compounding interest, you start to really understand this idea of when each person comes together, we start to have a synergy, and so does money. And so the whole idea of Boomerang Give to Get is about creating a synergy of money as well as a synergy of people. And that's what's amazing. But as I said before, when we're talking about synergy and we're talking about high performance, we're talking about all of that, we have to have some place to go. And so the way I think about it is when we're looking at a place to go, I make it very simple to think about, and I talk about going to a grocery store. In order to get to a grocery store, you need to know which grocery store you're going to go to. You got to know exactly how to get there, and you got to know where you're at. And what happens for a lot of people is they don't know where they're going, they don't know how to get there, and they're really not sure where they're at. And so we teach people how to be high performance people, which is basically always know your goal, always know exactly how you're getting there, and always know where you're at. And then what we talk about at Generator Coaching, which is my company, we talk about getting rid of the trash on the track as you're on the bullet train to action, moving towards your goals. And so we talk a lot about high performance and how to stay in a high performance mindset. And so everybody has triggers. Everybody has things that get in their way. Trash on the track. Everyone has those things. So how do you become a high performer that is able to continue to move along the track towards your goals? And so I'm going to open it up with me and Maro and talk about this a little bit more now that I've introduced it. And so I want to talk about the idea of what it's like to be a high performer first, and just ask Maro, do you see yourself as a high performer, or is it just a natural state for you?
I think it's a natural state, to be honest with you. I never really thought of myself as a high performer. I always saw myself as I have hundreds of ideas popping in my head all the time, but to me, that's been fairly normal in the way I feel, right?
Right. And here's the thing. When I interview high performers, every one of them say that, this is just a normal thing. But what happens when something gets in the way? Do you just turn on Law and Order and call it good? No. Or is there something that you do that's different than those people when they start feeling discouraged, they quit? What is that for you?
I don't like just quitting. It like some really bad stuff has to happen for me to decide that it's time to quit, or it just really has to come to an end where it's like, okay, this ain't happening. I've done everything possible at this point, and it's not worth more of my time. So I do evaluate things eventually, but I'll never quit on just one stoppage. Just to be honest, actually, here's a very good story on that. This Give to Get program, we had, I can't even tell you how many hiccups we've came across just getting off the ground. From me being Canadian and setting up the company in the US, banks were not wanting to give us bank accounts. I went to, at least 8 different banks that we got rejected from just to set up a bank account because I was Canadian. So I could have stopped at that point. Then it was the merchants. Again, being Canadian did not help the cause. Being a new company didn't help the cause. Being a very unique, different type of business that no one's really experienced or known of created hiccups. So we hit all kinds of hiccups and a whole bunch of situations that I think a lot of people would have probably given up at that point. So I just kept going because I really believed in this.
Yeah. It's really interesting. What Maro's talking about is there's this thing called routine, and Maro has created a routine for him. And some people talk about habits. I'm gonna make a distinction between habit and routine, because I think it's a very important idea that Maro has created a routine for himself, and I see him all of the time, and it almost looks like a habit, but it's a routine because he doesn't naturally just turn into, oh, I fell out of bed and I'm going to go take care of this stuff. He's intentional about what he does. He's intentionally going to bank after bank after bank. A habit would be much more the idea of you know what, that didn't work out. I'm going to go and take the rest of the time to go do something easier that works for me, that feels good to me, because habits have this way of making us feel better when we do them in the short term. In the long term, they usually have an effect that doesn't work for us. And so habits are really an automated program inside of ourselves, inside of our mind, of how to handle situations that aren't comfortable for us. We're going to eat a bag of chips. We're going to watch a movie, go veg out. We're going to go and some people actually have a habit of exercise where they're going to go get yoked or they're going to go get in shape. And it just takes away from their ability to perform in a good way. They might look really good, but they're doing it as a way to make themselves feel better when something's happened that isn't working for them. A routine is different because as habit is trying to make us feel better after some kind of thing didn't work out for us. So we're trying to self-soothe with a habit. A routine is something that we do that it could be automated, but a lot of times it's very intentional, and it's to move ourselves forward, whether we feel good about what's happening or not. And so habit is an automatic thing that causes us, out of whatever's happened, to feel bad in some way, to go self-soothe to make ourselves feel better. It could be biting nails, which is silly, but people do it when they get nervous. It's a self-soothing kind of thing where they bite their nail and then they have some way of coping with what's not working for them. A routine would be, although I bite my nails, I'm going to get this clipper and clip it so it's the way I want it to be. And then I'm going to go take action on what's going to make me go further, faster, the way I want to go. And so the difference is very, very important in my world, because when we look at somebody, are they doing something habit? How are they self-soothing? What emotion is triggered? And Emma Lou talked about emotion yesterday. And one of the things I look at is Emma Lou was talking about, I believe yesterday, she was talking about how emotions can move us forward. I talk about emotions in the same way. But the problem is when our emotions when we're reacting to our emotions, we actually slow ourselves down in a bad way, because we throw garbage on our track on our way to our goal. And so it becomes emotional baggage and emotional distraction rather than using our emotions for fuel. In routine, we build routines into our day so that no matter what's happening, we keep going. We use the emotion as fuel. We use the emotion to move us forward, and we keep ourselves in a what's next mindset. And so it really starts moving us forward. And so that first idea that we're talking about is routine versus habits. Habits are usually not healthy. People love to say, hey, make healthier habits. That's a routine. It's not self-soothing. People who go work out because they're moving towards a goal, they build routines, but not habits. People who are looking to eat right, they build an eating routine. It's not a habit, because the habit is automatically going and pulling out whatever's in the fridge and eating it to feed that thing that feels disappointing to them.
So you're saying create a routine that gets you moving towards your goal.
Exactly. And then routines to be able to identify the trash in the track as well. Mm-hmm. And so we at Generator Coaching actually work around this idea. And I don't mean like work around, but work in this idea of emotions are what triggers most of the stoppage along the way. And so our mindset is really going to go where our emotions flow. And so if we're feeling emotionally dominated, we're going to move into a victim stance. And our mindset is going to be, we can't, it's not going to work. It's going to, and we start to watch Law and Order instead of Law and Order reruns. You can watch it all day long. There's a Law and Order channel now, I think. And so, or we can have, I'm going to make it happen mindset. And that's still dominated by our emotions, but we're not going to let them win. Well, emotions are always going to win. And so what we teach at Generator is how to identify the emotions that are triggered, let them go so that you can get back on track. And we create a routine around doing that. And in fact, we have people schedule those times when they're really triggered by their emotions and start making a routine of checking in so that it becomes natural for you to identify your emotions and move forward fast.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Routine.
Yeah.
The next idea.
On a scale of 1 to 5, would you give yourself a 5 on achieving what you want in life? If your answer is anything less than a 5, right now, I have something awesome for you. Achieving your goals and living your life at a 5 isn't easy. Most people aren't prepared to focus, stay disciplined, and do the everyday work that is necessary to achieve amazing results. But since you're watching this, then I'm guessing that you're not one of those people. And this is an opportunity that will change your life. Give to Get is a global program that brings together world-class coaching and combines it with empowering masterminds and networking opportunities. We provide 5-star guidance for the price of a cup of coffee a day. To find out more, click on the link in the description of this coaching session.
Is really focusing on what you can do now. And Maro's story about getting Give to Get started, going to 8 banks. Now, some people say 8 banks is a lot. Wow, man. I know that the Kentucky Fried Chicken guy, he went to 800 something to get his recipe worked on, or somebody to buy his recipe. I know that Jobs did a whole lot of stuff too. And there's all kinds of stories around businesses that go and go and go and go and continue to make it happen. And that goes back to, no matter what the emotion is, I have a routine. I get up and I go and talk to another bank. I get up and go and talk to another person with a property that I want to buy. I get up and go and talk to another person about whether they want help with their business. That's my routine. That's what I do. But then when things come up, things stop you on your way, on that bullet train track, things get in the way. Well, if you're thinking about things that are going to get in the way a month from now, a year from now, you're focused on the future. If you're sitting there focused on what you already had to remove on your track and how hard it was, well, you're going to run into a new thing. And so it's really about focusing on what you can do now. What is that one powerful thing? And we run a group Tuesday nights. And last night, our group topic was, what is that one thing? If you had the answer to the question, or you had the hurdle removed, what would that hurdle be, or what would that question be, to be able to move you forward to making the money you want for this month? And by the way, we're not talking about $1 million. We're not talking about the next windfall. We're talking about that next monetary goal for the week or for the month, depending on what your business is, so that you are moving forward the way you want to. Really breaking it down into simplicity. What can you do now today? And it was an amazing group because each person brought a question that each of the other people had. And there was about 20 people in the group, give or take. And each person had this one question. And so they got 20 questions. Funny, there's a 20 question game, but there was about 20 questions asked that each one of them got something of value out in thinking about, what can I do now? What can I do this week to move me forward? And when we talk about Give to Get, what we're talking about is inviting somebody in so that they can start to get what you're going to be getting out of this when we start building this process. And so the idea is focusing on what we can do now. I'm going to ask Maro.
Yes.
How often have you experienced yourself moving to the future of what's going on, being the visionary and seeing the vision? How much does that get in the way of what you're going to do right now?
It actually that's a good question. See, a lot of times I'm thinking so far into the future, like well beyond where is realistic at that point in time, that to be honest with you, at times it gets discouraging because I'm like, oh my God, for me to get to that, I'm gonna have to go through this. And it ends up building like a whole series of events that are gonna have to take place before this comes into effect. It's now moving the mindset one step back to say, okay, where do I need to start this? Let's focus on this. And it actually, as much as it puts that fear, it also motivates me when I'm starting to think about the final outcome, the grand
right vision. And the funny thing is as you're talking about that, I'm sitting there going, that's exactly what happens to me. And I'm lucky in that my business partner is my partner, Christine, and we're business life world partner. Our whole lives are intertwined, and we're with each other pretty much all day, every day, unless I'm on one of these calls or she's on one of these calls or something like that. But I have that where I have what Maro is describing as that visionary, the visionary flu. I'll just call it that. And it's like, oh my God, I'm 2 years into the distance, and she asks me, well, what are we going to do? And I'm like, well, you can't see the vision. It's way out here. If you could see it, if I could tell you exactly what it is, but I don't know. I know what it looks like, but I can't necessarily describe it. So it's so far out there. And so she reels me back in and she starts asking me questions. And this is what we do with our clients is, okay, so at the broadest strokes, what do you want to look at? What is the one thing that you can do to move forward towards that? One little thing. And Maro and I have had many conversations about Boomerang. We've even talked about his charging stations as well as what's that one thing you can do to move forward with that? Where are you stuck right now? What's that one thing, if it can be removed, you start to move forward? And this is how high performers start to think, because most high performers have that visionary quality to them, as well as they can be technicians or they can be that worker at the same time, because performance junkies at the same time. And so we will perform, but we have this vision, perform vision, perform vision. And so it goes back and forth. But when we have somebody helping us, and this is why I firmly believe in coaching, and I think I have 4 right now for different areas of my business and my life. But the idea is, okay, what's that one thing? And I talk to the coach or talk to the mentor or the business advisor about that one thing that I can do and really hone in and get clarity around it. And then I can take action on it. And so really focusing on one thing, what I can do right now. And sometimes, believe it or not, the one thing I can do is step back and identify my emotions as triggered so I can move forward faster.
Yeah. Something that you just mentioned, a lot of times you get lost in your own space, you get lost in your own circling ideas, and you get to a point where you're locked and you can't see beyond. You're like, oh shoot, you have this wall in front of you. It's like an invisible wall that you just can't seem to break through. And you know that there's that blockage. And that's when the coach comes in, and you need that person that sees outside that level, outside that box, and triggers that mental thought that stimulates that switch. And it's like, oh yes, got it again.
I got it. Yes. And this brings us to our third thing that all high performers got. If you interview them, if you talk to them, if you connect with them, it's the idea of working with the flow instead of against it. Whether it's the flow in your body, it's the flow in the business, it's the flow in the communication, it's that flexibility to go with instead of fight against.
Yeah.
Every high performer I've ever seen is like, oh, that's not going to work. I can go this way. They don't lose their goal. They just realize that, oh, that street, if you go back to my analogy of going to the grocery store, oh, that street's closed down. Well, I can take a left and then another left and then a right. There's a left and then a right and a right, and I can get to the same place as if I went this way. And so the idea is, and I don't know if anybody noticed, but I actually have a store in mind when I do that. And you could see I just made a mistake. Oh, no, I take 2 rights. And so the idea is knowing what steps to take and going with it and being flexible in how you get there, although rigid in where you're going. I'm still going to that specific store. I just don't need to go this way. I can go this way. I can invite this person in. I can do it this way. I can create the terms in this way or that way, depending on the deal. No matter what it is, we're flexible in how we do it, although we're rigid in the idea of doing it.
I really like that. Actually, I want to make a point to that, because going back to that whole driving analogy, people have no problem when they're driving home from work and then they're on their way home. There is that barricade or the stop light, and you can't go through. Sure, they're like, oh man, that sucks. What do? They immediately turn and they know another, and they figure out the next way to get home, and they do it. And the thought was in and out of their head within seconds. a lot of times when it comes to business or when it comes to other things, that hurdle becomes so much bigger when really that's exactly what it is. It's just a roadblock that needs to, you just need to look and say, oh, okay, well, there's another way. Let me go find it.
Deal. Yep. I'll just go a different way. And the funny thing is there are some people that really get upset at the fact they have to go a different way because they're in a habit of this is the way I go.
Yeah.
This is the way it's got to be done. And they're rigid in how they do it instead of flexible in how they do it, which is a routine. Yeah. Routine allows you to have the flexibility, where a habit, I got to do it this way. This is what I do. And so really understanding that idea that there is a very, very big difference, and people talk about atomic habits and you can change a habit in 21 days. There's all these different things. You can't change habits. Habits are really ingrained, and they started when we were little kids, and they kept us safe and comfortable, and they soothed us. And so habits are not a good thing, but a routine is an excellent thing. And then when we go with the flexibility of our routine and how we're going about what we're doing, how we play out what a day is going to look like, we start to move forward. And I have a quote that I actually was given back to me by a client probably about 6 months ago. And I didn't remember ever saying it, but he said, Terry, you told me years ago that I change my my goals to meet my behavior. And that's why I never get anywhere. And what you really need to do is change your behavior to meet your goals.
Absolutely.
And I don't remember saying that, but it was like 2015 when I told this kid that. And he's like, that changed my life because I started realizing that the goal, I can't move to go back to the grocery store now. I can't move the grocery store to get there easier. I have to change how I go about getting there if I'm not liking how I'm getting there. If I'm walking and it's too long a walk, I got to get a bike or I got to get a car. I got to change my behavior to meet my goal. Yep. And it makes so much sense. And that's the flexibility we're talking about. And so the flexibility, not working against a goal, not working against other people, but seeing how we can do it together. And really, I'm going to bring it back to give to get again. We're better together. We're moving in a direction together. And we want to build a community that buys in to there is something better and we can do it together when we all jump in and start moving in the same direction. The next idea, for me, it's the 3 E's: explore, experience, and experiment. And so many people get into their habits and get very comfortable with their habits instead of living in the routine. And they stop exploring the world. They stop exploring their ideas. And this is one of the things that I loved about Maro. And it drove me nuts when I first met him because he's all over these ideas. And it's like, wow, man, you're just moving way too fast for me. And I move fast. But he really has this way of exploring all kinds of different ideas and life and having a good time and enjoying whatever he's doing as he's doing it. And it's just a joy to watch. If you don't know Maro, you got to watch him more because he is my hero in enjoying life, really. You are. And I'm not blowing smoke up here, but too much. But a little bit. But the fact of the matter is he's always having a good time. And even when he's frustrated about not getting the things working, he's still in that positive, what I can do kind of thing. And that's where we get to the experience and the experiment, is because you explore and you experience what that's like in your mind. And then you do an experiment to see if it works the way you thought it did. And so explore, experience, and experiment. No matter what you're doing in life, you're going to explore it. You're going to talk about it. You're going to think about it. You're going to wonder about it. And then you're going to experiment with it and try it. And then you'll see what the experience brings. Or you're going to experience in your mind. And this is where we get messed up sometimes. We experience in our mind. And if we're scared, the experience is going to be bad because our mind just did that to us and we won't experiment. Or the experience is going to be good in our mind, and then we'll go and do it. And sometimes it's great and we're excited, and sometimes it's terrible. We go, wow, that was not the experience I thought I was going to have. And so they work interchangeably, but it all starts with exploring what could be. And then the experiment of taking action, whether you thought about it or you didn't think about it, but really understanding what the experience in my mind is versus what the experience in real life is. And this is what life is really about when I look at it. It's about exploring, experiencing, and experimenting. And the experiment and experience can be interchangeable. What's next? But you have to explore first. You have to explore an idea. You have to explore a possibility. You have to explore all of what's going on. It's what we do. If you think about it, the world has populated by people exploring, by people moving forward and looking what's out there, and then doing experiments, moving out west, moving to Canada. I don't know why people do that, but experiencing what it's like once you do it and seeing what it's like, and then sharing your experience with people. And sharing your experience, strength, and hope is one of the things that I talk about in another program that I'm in. And we share our experience, our strength, our hope of what came out of our experiment and exploring what it could be to move forward with this. And so really understanding what it takes to be a high performer is to be able to experience, be able to experiment, and be able to explore what's next. No matter what you're doing, if you're doing the 3 E's, you're moving forward fast.
That makes a lot of sense. When you think about what you're exploring in life, you're literally exploring every day, be it new foods, be it new experiences. In everything you do, you're constantly exploring. And then it's what you're doing with that. You need to explore it, experience it, and then
experiment. Try it out. Try it out. Yep.
It's true. Absolutely.
And the funny thing is if you look at a baby, and I think about, I just had a virus thing pop up telling me that I'm all protected. If you think about the idea of babies and how they explore the world in their experience and experiment at the same time by tasting everything. And then as they grow older, if their parents are really worried parents, they're going to keep the kid from exploring. Or if they just don't like the kid doing stuff, they're going to keep the kid from exploring. And then that kid grows up with that idea. If they let them go, they see all kinds of things. I think if we are like that in our businesses too, and go check things out, go try things out, go do things, go get involved and see what's going to happen instead of experience it in your head from a bad story you had once years ago. Well, I remember when I did that last time, I got involved in that one thing last time. It was terrible. Well, try this one out, experience it, experiment, take action. And we're going to be talking about that in a minute. But in that process, sometimes, and Christine and I talk about the bullet train action, you want to go as fast as you can because money loves momentum. However, sometimes, especially when you're triggered by your emotions, like I was talking about earlier, sometimes it's better to slow down in order to speed up. And where you want to slow down is when you're experimenting too fast, so you don't know what's working, what's not. That's a problem. So you want to slow down and do the experiments a little slower, but you want to still move forward and you still want to experiment. You want to slow down and explore what's going on with you, explore what's going on with the people, explore what's happening and experience that by a communication. And then slowing down to speed up to see what's working, to see what could work better, to look at the step-by-step action. And we actually, in our metaphor of the bullet train, we talk about, we actually have 6 stops along our train. The first stop is you, really identifying what's going on with you, your emotions, your thinking, your values. And I'm not talking about core values of CVI. I'm talking about what you really pay attention to, and then what you actually don't pay attention to, or if you do pay attention to, you look at the things that don't work about it. And it's an assessment that we do. It's an amazing assessment. It tells you more about you than you ever want to know, but it really helps you move forward fast. But this idea of values and what you pay attention to helps you move. And that's that first step, really looking at yourself and getting a very in-depth understanding of how you work with yourself and how you work with other people. And then our next step is really talking about how relationships work and how you can get the best out of relationships, how you can show up to relationships, because everything in business is relationships. Every piece of business is relationships. Even if it's a transaction, hey, you want to buy this for $10? And they say yes, it's still a relationship. And so understanding how you explore, experience, and experiment in relationships and start to have routines around how you do relationships so that you can have really wonderful, valuable, rich relationships like I have with you, like I have with Walter and the other people that are involved in this, and my whole network. I have so many deep friendships, and sometimes I don't see them for months at a time, but they are deep, and people that I have the relationships with because we were very intentional about how to build them, they're always there. And it's because we really, really understand how to do relationships right. And then once you have those two pieces, getting leads for your business or building your business through developing leads, developing marketing, that's very easy. How to have sales conversations from a relationship standpoint, how to understand how to help people get what they want. Very easy. Those are the next two pieces that we look at. And then how to fulfill on those, how to have fulfilling relationships where people are really excited about what they get. And when you put that all together, all 5 of those pieces that we teach on, then that's business accelerated growth, business growth. And that's our 6. And we talk about how your day is supposed to look like when you have a high performance day, when you have a high performance business, where you have a high performance lifestyle, and what that really looks like. And we walk you through these 6 steps. And I haven't seen anybody who walks through these 6 steps with us as a business not grow. They grow exponentially because these are the building blocks. And it starts with yourself, moves to relationships, and then every piece of business, it makes perfect sense. And you get on the bullet train. And so we have those 6 stops on the bullet train of action towards your goals.
The bullet train to success.
Exactly. And we really slow down so that we can speed up, help people really understand themselves so they can go faster, have relationships much at a deeper level. I can build a rapport with somebody, which rapport is different than alignment and agreement and liking people. Rapport is really being in lockstep with somebody along the way. And it's really about understanding, not liking. It's about having that real deep understanding of what people are going through, what people want. I talk a lot about empathy in that idea. When we're empathic with people, we have better rapport. And so in our relationships, we start to move forward. But you have to slow down to be able to do that. And that's another thing that I really like about you, particularly Maro, is we have that ability to put all work aside and just talk about what's going on with us. Talk about what we're doing, talk about what's happening and what we want, what our goal is. And I just love your relationship with your kids and Nikki and all of that goes into you. And that's part of the slowing down, because every one of us building a high performance business, building an empire, building a lifestyle, no matter what it is, it's really about slowing down and being able to enjoy what we're doing at the same time.
Creating a balance.
But it's, and for me, it's not creating a work-life balance. It's creating an internal emotional balance so that no matter what we're doing, we love it.
Yep. Absolutely.
And then the next thing that we talk about is the taking action. We call it the bullet train action because everything happens with action. I have never seen anything happen that there wasn't action involved. You have to take action to have a drink of water. You can have the water right there. I got water right here, just like Maro did. I use my environment a little bit, but I can't have any of that until I take action. I have to take action. I can think about drinking that water all day long and not get any water. I can think about how I want my business to be, but until I take action to go get leads, to go make sales, to go enroll people in an idea, nothing happens without the action. I cannot get any traction without action. And so I have to be able to move my thought into action if I want to see a result. And we talk about the result because without results, there's no reason to do it.
Yep.
And so it's really about taking the action. And if you go back to the 3 E's, taking action is the experiment. Every time we do something, it's an experiment. And people are like, no, it's not. I knew this was going to happen. No, you didn't. You don't have a crystal ball. All the crystal balls broke on their way out of the factory. Unfortunately, even those people who tell the future, it's just a light bulb. It's just a cover to a light bulb. It's not real. Sorry to burst that bubble, but there is no ability to tell the future. There's mind games where people are pretty damn good at it. It's called mentalism. And I actually have a couple of good friends that are mentalists that can spooky read what's going on with you and tell you all about your past and tell you all about what's going to happen. And they can pull out and, tell you exactly where you live without knowing it before. That's mentalism, but it's not really being able to tell the future. We have to do the experiment to see what's going to happen. We have to take action. We have to engage in that scary spot between where I'm at and where I want to go. And between those two spots is like this chasm sometimes. Sometimes it's just like a little short little hop, but a lot of times it's a big chasm and you could fall in it. And that's that leap is a leap of faith. We got to take that leap of faith in order to get into action. We got to do the experiment. We got to see what happens. Without action, we can't adjust. And then every action we take gives us feedback in the idea as we experience and explore how that experiment went, what's next. And so a lot of people are like, what's next steps? Well, you got to take this one to know what the next steps are.
Yep.
Map it out, but go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you're taking actions, the action could go towards a positive result or a negative, but you can't look at it as a negative result. You got to look at it as a learning experience. There is no negative. It's not taking you in the direction you want to go. It's a realignment.
I actually got, I was on LinkedIn yesterday and I read this thing about negative feedback and I was like, there is no negative feedback. There is no negative result. It's just a result. Here's the thing. This is the funniest shit in my world, but the thing is, I just didn't like the result. I just didn't like the feedback. Oh, it's negative feedback. No, it's not. I just didn't like it. They said I'm too pushy. Well, that's not negative. That's not negative feedback. That's actually very positive feedback. If I'm too pushy, maybe they're a wimp. But at the same time, right? But
it's their fault.
Exactly. But at the same time, the idea is that feedback, if I take it and I explore it and I can experience it from their point of view, which by the way is empathy, and understand what it was like for them when they're giving me the feedback, what it is they're giving me feedback about, and I can be open to it, it just makes me better.
Yep.
And so there is no negative feedback unless it's an amplifier on a guitar that's blown or something and makes all kinds of bad noise. That might be negative feedback, but still, it's still just feedback. We just didn't like it. And it's funny how much we get.
It's feedback telling you have the settings wrong and you got to fix it.
Exactly. And so I don't know where this came into our language, and I'm a language guy. I'm very, very aware. Now, there's a lot of people out there that talk about you can't say try, you can't say can't, you can't do all of these things. And it's funny because they're saying you can't do that, but then they're doing it when they're saying that. And like, hey, it's bad to say that. No, it's not. It's feedback of where you're at emotionally. Because if I'm saying words like I can't, or it's really hard, or I don't know how to do this, all of those statements where other people say, don't say those because they'll program you to not be able to do. No, be aware of you're saying that because you're experiencing an emotional state that's not working for you. And when you can identify it, you become aware of it, you can shift into a powerful place where you can actually take action and do more experimenting and then experiencing and exploring of where you're at and where you want to go. And so the language is very important. But it's funny because we talk about negative feedback. We talk about negative results. There are no results that are negative. We just don't like them. And when we realize that, not liking something just means that we have a new goal. If I don't like what I got, I have a new goal, or I have a conviction to move forward towards the goal I already had and use the routine and the flexibility to go a different way to get to the goal I had. But it's all about being very, very intentional. All of what we're talking about today is about being intentional to perform at a level that's going to get us to our goal. And it always starts with our goal. Our goals always start with really getting clear on what we want. And when we get clear on what we want, and we get clear on the idea that we can have it, as long as we take action, then we can have a powerful life. We can have a high-performing life, and we can enjoy everything we're doing in our life. No matter how much we're working or how much we're playing, we can enjoy it at a high-performance level because we are 100% connected to our emotions, connected to our mind on our way to the store. That's what I got for you today.
That was brilliant. Loved it. I'm sure everybody learned something and took a lot of great points out of this. And, when you think about all the key points that you did say, creating the routine, living by the 3 E's, explore, experience, and experiment, and then taking action. Those are awesome points to take into account. And to just, if you want performance, follow that. You can't fail.
Can't fail. And slow down and ask for help if you're finding yourself running into roadblocks.
Yep.
That's what we're here for. There's a number of coaches in Boomerang Give to Get. There's a number of coaches that Maro really came to us and said, hey, I want to make this great. And I know that you have something to offer and I want to invite you in. And we jumped in because 1, we love Maro. 2, we know that his goals are amazing. Boom Nation's amazing. What he's got going on is really, really powerful. And so we jumped in because we agree with his vision. We agree with his mission. We want to be a part of it. And we want you to be a part of it too.
Awesome. Terry, thank you so much.
Oh yeah. Awesome.